This experience took place just shy of 2 years ago while I was living in the STEP program in Oregon. Located in a town notorious for tweakers, I had many terrifying experiences while living there, but those aren't what I'm here to tell you about. The campus I lived on at the time consisted of 3 buildings that lined the same block, a 4th building a 5-minute walk away called HQ, and a 5th building a few blocks over in the other direction called Michael's Place. There was the boarding house, the men's living quarters, and the sunflower house, the women's living quarters. Located between the 2 houses was the AC. One thing to note about the AC is its history. Before being purchased by the founders of the program, it was a Red Cross with a morgue in the basement. One evening, I was approached by a couple of friends. One had a Ouija board in the boarding house and wanted to see if it'd work. Naturally, due to its past, we decided the AC would be a perfect place to test this out. We all decided to meet up in the hallway that connects to the study lab. Since it's after productive hours, most of the students were socializing and chillaxing at this time in the study lab. It's pretty chaotic, and we sat for maybe 20 or 30 minutes, asking spirits questions, but we were disappointed when nothing really happened. Being the dumb 19-year-old I was at the time, I asked if I could borrow the board. My friend handed it over, thinking nothing of it, and while you weren't supposed to use it alone, that's just what I did. It was a mistake. This led to one of the most terrifying nights in my entire life. The living space of the Sunflower House was split into 3 apartments. The first was downstairs and to the left when you first entered the building. To the right of this was a common area. Directly ahead were the stairs to the 2nd floor, where once you reached the top, there were 2 apartments directly to the left and right of you. Each apartment had a bedroom and could sleep up to 4 people in it. There was also a shared bedroom, a shared kitchen, and in 2, a shared living room. Instead of a living room, the left apartment had what was known as the single room. In order to be moved into that room, a student would have to build trust and prove they can live in the room alone. I lived in all the rooms during my time in the program, but I was living in the single room during my experience. Walking in there was a twin bed shoved against the same wall as the door. On the opposite wall, under 2 windows, sat a dresser, while on the far end of the room was a closet. The room itself was small and snug with floorboards that would creak when you walked on them. Knowing it was dangerous to use the Ouija board alone, I performed a few spells I wrote. I'm a Wiccan who practices witchcraft, asking the goddess to keep me safe from spiritual attack and to protect myself, as well as those around me during my session that night. I smudged the board to clear it of any energies that it may have absorbed. I then did the same for my room and myself before blessing one of the crystal pendants I wore around my neck as an added safeguard. I then positioned myself on the floor between my bed and dresser, the board in front of me with my back to the closet. There was a full-length mirror mounted on the wall inside my closet. Just the idea of sitting in the dark staring into my reflection made my skin crawl. Lighting 2 candles, I placed them on either side of the board and set up a few crystals along the top edge of the board. Placing both index fingers on the planchette, I reached out to any spirits that were willing to communicate with me, directing them towards the light of the candle flames and the sound of my voice. After a few minutes, I received an answer. To be completely honest, I cannot remember what questions I asked that spirit. I want to assume I asked its name and any other basic questions one asks while using a Ouija board. What I do remember is the fear I felt and what I experienced after ending the session that night. I had a fascination with the supernatural and took an interest in the dark, twisted, and macabre. Ironically, I also am easily frightened. Needless to say, it didn't last very long before I got too freaked out and closed the session. I was polite and respectful, properly ending the session and closing the portal as I had been taught. I also made sure I did not anger the entity I came in contact with. That said, for one reason or another, said entity decided it still wanted my company. I remember blowing out the candles and immediately diving under my covers. I lay on my side, facing the wall. My heart was beating rapidly. I remember the strong sensation of being watched. This grew oppressive, almost heavy. The floorboards were creaking as if there was someone pacing around my room. I shut my eyes and started to pray, clutching the crystal I wore around my neck. The footsteps moved into my closet and fell silent. After a few minutes, I started to relax, hoping that whatever I had invited into my room was gone. At some point, I started to doze off only to be jolted awake as the noises started up again. Whatever it was would walk the length of my room, slowly and deliberately. I could feel the entity looking down at me. After some time, it would make its way back to the closet. This lasted most of the night. I spent the entire night on my side, begging for the goddess to protect me and keep me safe. I was absolutely petrified. Eventually, sleep did come. Whether I had passed out from fear or plain exhaustion, I'm not sure. The following morning, the atmosphere in my room felt noticeably lighter. When I gave the Ouija board back to my friend, he asked if anything had happened. Unsure of what to tell him, I said I didn't want to talk about it. Over the course of the next few days, the activity in my room decreased in intensity and then stopped altogether. I've used a Ouija board twice in my life prior to this, both times with groups of people, and I don't think I'm ever going to touch one again. Heed the warning of someone who told you to listen. Do not use the Ouija board alone. Roughly a year ago, I experienced lucid dreaming. For those who aren't aware of what that is, it is when you can control what is going on in your dreams as you are aware of dreaming. My experience went as follows. Stage 1, I was with a group of people my age when I soon find myself walking away from them and into a store I've never seen before. Looking around, I soon spot my little sister. The strange part of this was, she only glanced at me and gave this look as though she didn't recognize me or know who I was at all. This leads us to stage 2. A man starts to follow my sister very closely. I rush over to him and grab him and turn him around and ask who the hell he is. The man just stares and says nothing. Soon after I go away, he fades into pixels. All I can do at this point is just stand there in shock. This leads to stage 3, where I find myself falling towards a huge pool of water, which leads me to brace myself and get into diving position. Next, it's stage 4. I didn't hit the water. Instead, I find myself in a standing position. The world around me is dark. I look around searching for something when I realize something. The realization hits me, and I tell myself to come on. Reminding myself I need light. In this place, a huge ball of light suddenly just forms in front of me. The light blinds me and I am awake in my bed, unable to move, drained of energy and sweating. I'm unsure of what time it is, but I finally regain my energy and my eyes readjust. I look out the window to see the sun rising. Mentioning this to my parents later on, my dad explained he is also a lucid dreamer. I highly doubt it's a genetic thing. What do you all think? Was this just a one-off experience or something more? I don't know. It honestly almost made me want to pee myself. This started a few weeks ago when I was horribly sick. I was unable to keep anything down without extreme nausea. I'd lost quite a bit of weight, had severe migraines, and I began feeling depressed and miserable every waking moment of my life. I grew up in a family who worked in the medical field and was always taught I should never worry about a migraine unless it lasts 15 days or longer. On the last day and night, I felt the worst I had since getting sick. My head was in such severe pain, I couldn't see straight. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eyes, and I was in a trace like I've never been in my life. I basically spent the entire week dizzy and confused. I felt emotionally distraught. I was in so much pain. I'd lay there in the fetal position, crying uncontrollably and praying for the pain, begging for it to go away. Eventually, I fell asleep while shaking uncontrollably. It was when I had an extremely vivid dream. I could see blackness, but I heard much more. I heard someone calling upon the archangels Raphael, Gabriel, Michael, and Rogael, as well as something else ethereal. It happened so fast, and I couldn't jot it all down. I'm trying to remember it the best I can. This is when I heard several voices all around me. They reassured me. They told me it was going to be okay, that it was all over now. They promised I'd feel no more pain. The suffering is over now, they said. After this, I awoke. I was in no pain or agony of any kind. I was fully alert and I felt amazing. I'd forgotten what life was like not being sick or in pain. I was happy the suffering was truly over. I felt truly refreshed, and to be safe with my stomach, I ate one slice of bread that day. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm grateful it's all over.